Good evening, and welcome back to Health Plus Weekly. I am Dr. John Pacoa. I'm joined by my co-host, nurse practitioner Hannah Raymond, and we are excited to welcome back to our studio tonight a favorite guest, Heather Haynes, registered dietitian, and we're going to be talking about smart food choices over the summer, smart fast food choices, and a host of other nutrition topics tonight. We, as always, encourage you to write into the show, please, with your questions, especially tonight in terms of nutrition questions. We want to know. Also, we like to know where you're watching from so we can say hello to people. So please, just let Hannah know she has her laptop open so we can communicate with everyone. And in addition, actually, before the show started, we were just talking about we've been having a bit of a pizza craving tonight. So we were debating pros and cons of thin and thick crust pizza. And if you could write in, because I'm actually thinking about getting pizza on the way home from tonight, your favorite pizza place locally, and we could have a bit of a debate about which one, because we love all things pizza. Before we get started, just a couple announcements. This week, in terms of nicer weather and eating well, Southcoast is pleased to announce farmers markets that will be available starting on Tuesday the 19th at St. Luke's Hospital, Wednesday the 20th at Charlton Hospital, and Thursday the 21st at the Southcoast Business Center on Mill Road. There will be farmers markets available for people to purchase fresh foods and healthy diet choices this summer. And as the summer rolls on, there'll be those availabilities, and we'll keep you posted on them. Also, this month, Southcoast is hosting 2 informational sessions on the bariatric and weight loss programs at Charlton and St. Luke's hospitals. To learn more about that, you can call the following phone number. It's 508-273-4900. Again, 508-273-4900 for further information and to register about. These are informational seminars regarding the bariatric programs and weight loss options that Southcoast offers. And finally, there is a Kegel Connection workshop that we want to make people aware of that the Southcoast Rehabilitation Services is offering for pregnant women this Saturday, June 9th at 9 a.m. to 11 p.m. in Dartmouth. The program is geared towards expectant mothers in their first or second trimesters and to help assist them in learning the proper exercises to help manage their urinary complaints after childbirth. So that number is 508-973-9370. Again, 508-973-9370 to book that event. And the last thing I'd like to just announce tonight that this Saturday at 9 a.m. at Buttonwood Park, I will be doing the New Bedford Wellness Initiative's Walk with the Doctor. So I will be there at 9 a.m., the Buttonwood Park Zoo, if you want to come out and walk with the doctors and happy to talk about primary care questions or things we talk about on the show. I'll be there, and there's usually a great group of people who turns out. So this Saturday, New Bedford Wellness Initiative, Buttonwood Park, I'll see you there. And with that, Heather, welcome back.
Welcome back.
Thank you.
For coming back. It's great. We're in the new studio, so
new studio. Love the space.
Right?
Yep.
So that's
very nice.
So I think since you were here before, we kind of have started asking people, how they got interested in their profession, interested in the field. So I don't think we asked you the first time you were on how you got into nutrition. What made you kind of choose that as your career?
Yeah. That is a great question to ask people when they're coming in here. So I love food, all things food, pizza, not excluded. Anything, eating, cooking, always have, loved it. And when I was kind of thinking about college and what I wanted to do, I was like, I'm going to be a chef, and I'm going to make cupcakes and do all of these things that, of course, sound really great and food related at the time. And my mother's like, no, you're going to get a degree in something. And so nutrition was kind of that next logical step. And then I wound up coming down here from Vermont.
Okay.
Is that where you grew up?
Yeah,
What part of Vermont?
Heartland, Vermont. So kind of like center of the state. And I moved down here for a dietetic internship program. So after you graduate, you get matched. We talked about that a little bit last time, I believe. And I wound up getting matched at Southcoast. So we have a great program. We always have dietetic interns coming through that we work with. We also have a joint program with the University of Rhode Island. So we have a master's degree and dietetic internship. So
good.
That's a great place.
Great. And so where do you work now? What setting? Are you in the hospital? Are you in an outpatient clinic?
Yeah. So now I work outpatient. I did 7 years of inpatient at St. Luke's Hospital, working on the surgical floors and in the intensive care unit. And then I moved to outpatient nutrition, which I love. It is so great. And I work at Southcoast at St. Luke's 3 days a week. And then I'm also in Fall River 2 days a week.
2 days a week, okay.
It's great. I mean, I know personally for our patients, you work with a number of them, which is really great. And one of the things we want to make sure people are aware of tonight is that, but we're just talking, almost all insurances now cover, nutritional counseling. So they can see you and their insurance will pay for it, and you and your team can help them, right, in terms of educating them about nutrition.
Definitely.
And all the different nutritional needs.
Yeah.
And the best way to kind of get hooked up with a nutritionist, you or somebody else on your team, would be to contact your primary care's office and get a referral, be seen, or have them put a referral through.
Yeah, if you just flip over your insurance card and give that number a call, you can ask them about what your coverage is for nutrition services, if there are specific diagnoses and other things, but more and more, all different kinds of things are being covered. So definitely ask. If it's a benefit you have, why not use it?
And when people come in to see you, what's it like? How long do you get to spend with them, and how many times do you typically see them?
Yeah, usually the first appointment is an hour, so you kind of get to know somebody, which is really nice. We kind of go through all of your history, what your issues are, do educational component, whatever it is you want to learn about nutrition.
Set, people know, right?
Yeah, assess kind of where you're at, and then figure out, what information is going to be helpful for you. And then depending on why you're there, we can make a customized plan, go through what your preferences are. So I'm not handing you a sheet of paper that says, here, eat a bunch of cottage cheese, and you're like, no, I'm never going to touch that. So it's kind of fun.
Good.
And then how often do you usually see people back?
It depends. Again, that's kind of like an insurance. So some people get a certain number of visits per year. Some people have unlimited. I have patients that I see every 2 weeks. I have people that I see once a month. I have people that come in quarterly.
Because unfortunately, there is, I think, a big gap in our education on nutrition in schools and in postgraduate training, even in medical school. And I'm not sure about Hannah when you were going through your nurse practitioner school. I mean, I received a small course in nutrition. It was something that I learned afterwards and kind of developed, just because I realized how much it affected my patients and, their health outcomes and their disease states and different things. But and so many patients don't know and have real questions about it.
I know it was always incorporated as, one of the interventions is they'll just say diet, but no specifics about it. So I think it's been a learning curve, certainly, in the first couple of years of practice, trying to figure out what does that mean for each of the kind of disease states that we're trying to impact with dietary changes.
Definitely, and like you guys were kind of saying, it impacts a whole spectrum of different disease states and your general health and well-being and how you're feeling and your energy levels and everything else. And when it's a quick office visit or they're physical, you have so many boxes you have to check. So what's nice is if you come in and see a dietitian, we can sit down and that is our whole topic. We can spend all of that time focusing really on that.
So for everyone watching tonight, we hope to answer as many questions as possible tonight, but if we don't and you have more questions, definitely ask your doctor about getting a referral to our Southcoast dietitian center, to work with Heather and her colleagues, because I can personally say my patients who have gone and worked with you are doing great, and they've lost weight, they've kind of identified certain things in their diet that were just not the right thing, and are kind of definitely more educated.
So we have a couple of shout outs before we kind of dive into talking about healthier fast food options. My mom is watching and my grandmother. Hi, guys. Jocelyn Medeiros said her favorite pizza place is Me and Ed's. Local number 1, and then Metro Pizza.
Oh, I've heard a lot about Metro Pizza.
Hi, Margaret and Sandy, and Bert, actually.
We miss you, Margaret.
Yep. Bert, is a family member who gave us a lot of good ideas for the show upcoming, so we'll have to talk about those. And Jay is on a seafood diet. He sees food and he eats it, so that's good.
That's my favorite kind of diet.
Yeah. And we do have actually a question kind of, to start us off a little bit. Jeanette's asking, she started a plant-based diet, and is it possible to eat too much fruit when eating on just a plant-based diet?
Definitely. So fruit has its own natural sugars. So depending on if you're just eating a plant-based diet for general health, or if you're trying to use that as a weight loss technique, or for depending on kind of what you're doing, there is definitely a higher end of things. I'd say if you're having, 3 to 4 pieces of fruit a day, you're probably okay. If you're having, 5, 6, 7 pieces of fruit a day, you're probably going toward that higher end.
Higher end.
Too much. So even though there's more, it's better than certainly a candy bar because of the natural
Right.
fiber. It's not, an entirely free game.
Right. You don't want to sit down and eat 2 pounds of grapes.
Right. You'll be paying for that after. So I think one of the things we really wanted to talk about, I know we didn't get to touch on before and in the other show, was kind of how to make healthy food choices on the go. That's something that we all struggle with, kind of meal planning and not having enough time. So if there's any tips or any strategies that you tell your patients if you're running out for fast food, are there other options that could not kind of break the bank in terms of your diet?
Definitely. I think that a lot of people worry when they come in or they're going to talk to their doctor or their dietitian. If they say they eat fast food, it has this whole shame stigma associated with it. Like, I know I was bad, I went to fast food. And it's not obviously as healthy as going out to the store and buying all of your own ingredients and making your own things, but we live in a fast-paced world. There are times when you got to do what you got to do.
Yeah.
So there are definitely ways you can make better choices, and it depends on where you're at and where you're willing to go, and what's close by. That can definitely affect your choices. So there are a ton of fast food options in our area, and then there are some kind of restaurants that you can grab food on the go to. Popular ones, Subway is always a good choice. They have a Fresh Fit menu, which all of those sandwiches are, I believe, a 6-inch sub on wheat, and they're less than 500 calories. They have over a serving of vegetables in them. That's pretty good. It also depends on what you're looking for, your choice regarding if you're watching your weight, if you're trying to limit your sodium intake. That's kind of the toughest piece.
I was going to say,
dining out.
Yes.
Most of the sodium content of food that you get out or on the go or those grab options is going to be far higher than you want it. But choosing, leaner proteins, chicken is usually a good go-to.
So like a grilled chicken
Like
versus a fried chicken.
Exactly.
Type sandwich, okay.
And in terms of fat in meats and so what's the fattiest? What's the worst? Yeah, or I should say the worst. But what is the highest fat content?
Yeah, the highest fat content is probably in burgers, especially when you start layering cheese and bacon on top of them, and then you have your sauces. So it kind of goes up from there. Most fast food restaurants aren't using a lean burger like what you could get if you were making burgers at home. That's kind of what makes chicken usually the lower calorie, lower fat, lower saturated fat choice.
And then fish. Is fish above or below chicken in terms of fat?
It depends on which kind of fish. If it's a white fish.
Yeah, say it's a white fish. You know what I mean? Like usually in this, the fried fish sandwiches and out and things.
Yeah, if it's a fried fish sandwich, it's going to have a higher amount of fat than if it's a grilled chicken sandwich. Probably because then you have it breaded and it's been through the deep fryer. Another great thing is order off the kids menu. Which sounds kind of stupid as an adult going through and ordering a Happy Meal, but it's a smaller portion. Even if you get a hamburger, a cheeseburger, a 6-piece chicken nugget, whatever it is, the portion's going to be smaller, and you can opt for other sides. So if you don't want to get the French fries with it, they usually have some sort of a fruit.
Like an apple slices.
Apple slices, applesauce.
Not that I would
something
know.
like that.
Or anything
Not that
like
I've ever done it.
Yes.
You can always get milk for a beverage or water. You don't have to get the soda or 100% fruit juice, which is kind of a nice, quick alternative. I think one of the other traps we fall into is whatever the value deal is. So a lot of people that get fast food, they aren't paying for, just a regular combo meal. They're going there because it's advertised that you can pick 2 sandwiches for $4 and they're getting kind of a deal out of it. But what happens is when you choose those lower money deals, you're getting far higher calories and is a far worse health choice. So sometimes paying a couple dollars more for a little less food can be a healthier choice.
Great. We have a question from Jocelyn asking, how bad are the tropical smoothies?
That is a great question.
Yep.
Yeah, everybody loves tropical smoothie, and they have some really great foods and salads and things that you can grab on the go. The smoothies are kind of a slippery slope. Most all of the smoothies are going to have upwards of 100 grams of sugar in them.
Because they actually add a sugar syrup to them, but you can opt out of it. We've looked into
Yep,
it.
Yes.
you can, or you can they have an option with Splenda.
Splenda,
Yep.
Also,
my favorite's a triple berry oat with spinach and kale, just full sweetener.
good plug.
So that's a great question. Great question. And so we have kind of a medical / nutrition question from Tammy. What causes extreme fatigue immediately after a meal, even if it's a healthy meal? Any thoughts on that?
Well, it could be a couple different things. One of it is it depends on what the component of your meal was. If it's a primarily carbohydrate-based meal, sometimes people experience fatigue from changes in their blood sugar. Another one is that once you eat, even if you are eating something healthy, your blood flow is kind of channeled to your GI tract and away from your brain, and your body's kind of going through all of those processes of digestion, and that can sometimes play a different.
And insulin gets released, and there's the component. Are we all caught up on questions over there? Anna? So back to, in terms of also what we were talking about before the show, but in terms of going to the fast food restaurants and making choices, besides ordering what you're going to eat, what you order to drink is profoundly important, because soda is a ton of calories, sodium, and a host of problems, correct?
Right. Yeah, mainly it's the amount of sugar that's in it and then total calories. So it depends on if you're getting, a combination, things like that. People want the value, so they go for it's going to come with a large drink and a large fry and a sandwich. But if you just choose water, they always have that as an option. Even a diet soda can be a little bit better choice.
Unsweetened iced tea.
Unsweetened
right?
iced tea is one of my favorites to get.
Yeah.
And being careful with the sides too. So, you could probably fill up from just eating a sandwich from one of those places. You don't need all of that extra stuff. Most places offer a side salad and a light dressing option too. That's kind of it.
One of my patients who saw you recently, who has lost weight because you helped show her how much she was consuming calories by drinking soda, she said that you actually poured sugar into, to kind of, and she never really conceptually got it.
Yeah.
Until she literally saw how much sugar you poured into the glass, and it kind of blew her away.
Yeah, that's a kind of a great tool that I use in my office and counseling people, is because when you flip over the label and it says how many grams of sugar, grams don't really mean anything to us. So if you're looking and you have your bottle of Coke and you see that it's, a quarter of the way filled with sugar, you can't imagine sitting there and just eating spoons of table sugar like that, but it's the equivalent in your body. And juices are the same way. So like how I have my bottle of soda, I also have a bottle of juice, and gram for gram, the sugar's pretty similar.
About the same. Do you recommend for parents with children cutting juice with water, kind of to
dilute
get the same effect? Okay.
Yes,
Yeah, good.
definitely.
Good. And what about, so we talked about sodas, which is the obvious choice, but then there's kind of the 3 p.m. coffee run, which is also a big culprit. And any of those sweetened kind of coffees and things like that?
And maybe like this afternoon, it kind of feels like we might start experiencing some summer weather, maybe. So the iced coffees, not that anyone needs to wait for summer to have those. We drink them all year round here. But definitely can be a huge calorie burden on people. And just for your overall health, consuming sugar in those large quantities, because those iced coffees, once you start adding sugar, flavor swirls, other things, can be just the same as drinking a soda, or sometimes a couple of sodas, because we're adding creams and other things too.
Back to the tropical smoothie question, because it was important in terms of just recognizing, they show on the menu when you order you can look at the calories. So just identifying, because they can be anywhere between 300 to 700 and something calories in these drinks. And so for just to give people a perspective of one way to educate themselves of like what their choices are. It's a rough rule of thumb, right? But adults, how many calories, I know it's not ideal, but kind of just where you start kind of figuring out what you should consume in a day.
If you're thinking, I would think more like in a meal. So if you're consuming between 500 and 600 calories at a meal, that's pretty standard.
That's good.
So if you're going somewhere and getting a smoothie that's 400 or 500 plus calories alone, then you're having a sandwich that might be another, 400, 350 calories, and then you're getting a side dish with it. You're having a meal that's giving you 3/4 of your caloric need for an entire day. In one sitting. Yeah. Right, so your body can't process and use all of that. It's going to use the little bit it needs, and then the rest of it is going to get broken down and stored as fat, which is where we get into trouble when we're doing those things as a pattern day after day.
Yeah.
Right. I think it was really, it was helpful for us to, you think there's no way this can taste this good without having something hidden in it. And the amount of useful information on the websites of the fast food places is really, you can break it down and spend some time rather than feeling kind of rushed if you're standing in line and waiting. So, taking a little bit of time afterwards, we found kind of helpful. And
definitely. That's great advice too. If you're somebody who, you have a late day, you have a day when you're going to need to grab something, or even just having that kind of contingency plan, like, I'm at work and I don't have anything to eat, I'm going to have to step out and get something. Do a little research on the website. They have great nutrition calculators where you can put together your whole meal. You can kind of play and take different pieces away, like what if I ordered this without the cheese or without the sauce, and kind of figure out what's a good go-to item for you.
And having a game plan decided before you even show up to the place makes it easier, I would imagine.
Always.
Also have no idea about that from personal experience.
Is there a question?
No, we're solid.
So when we talk to patients, one of the things I've learned in terms of approaching nutrition and eating, in terms of a lot of people worry about like what they should be eating, but there's also, like you touched on, portion control. Just not maybe perhaps worry about what you're eating, but it can be complicated. So just focusing on eating less, right, in general, and then also limiting the hours that what you eat in. So not eating after a certain time at night, because we tend to crave, or and kind of stopping eating. We have time later we talk about this intermittent fasting period, but I kind of agree with that in terms of, and I don't know if you see this when you work with people, but I think willpower is fatigable. I think people do really well, myself included, like make a smart breakfast choice, pretty smart lunch choice, but then you get tired, the day goes on, and I get home from work and the wheels kind of start coming off the bus in terms of snacks, chips, hungry, because you're tired. And when you're tired, I think there's a big correlation between choosing bad foods.
Yeah, I think there's also a big correlation in our society of associating boredom with needing to eat.
Yes.
So you kind of hit that, you've had dinner, you're relaxing, you're watching TV, and you kind of are feeling like what's next? What am I supposed to be doing? Or am I doing work and I need a break? And we kind of have taken food and put it into that place where it's like that okay break to take. And it's, I'm not really doing anything. Maybe I'll just peruse through the kitchen and see if I can grab a spoonful of something, or if there's, a couple of cookies. And over time, it's probably way more than we need. So another great tip that I give almost everybody that walks into my office, so if anybody comes in, they're going to hear it again. But one of my favorite things to tell people is digestion doesn't happen instantaneously. So we're used to everything happening so fast, and we're talking about fast food. You don't get full within the first few minutes of eating. It takes about 20 minutes from that first bites of food hitting your stomach for your stomach to start producing those hormones, those signals, for that to travel back up to your brain to tell your brain that you're done eating. So if in 20 minutes you've woofed down that entire sandwich and the fry and something else, and you had the second sandwich too, so you started in on that one, you've overridden your body's hunger and satiety cues, which we're kind of we have naturally, but we just don't listen to very well. So one easy thing people can do is when you start eating, set a 20-minute timer. You have your phone, you have everything. Slowing down your eating is really hard, and anyone I tell to take a bite and put down your fork is going to do it once and then laugh at me and be like, ha ha ha, I'm never doing that again. set that 20-minute timer, have your portion that you plan to have, and wait till that timer goes off. Move on, move out of the kitchen, put everything else away. And if when that 20-minute timer goes off, you're still hungry, by all means get something else to eat. But 9 times out of 10, you're actually going to be satisfied.
Right.
And then you're not going to feel full and have heartburn and all these other complaints that we get from just overeating.
Yeah. Like I call it the Python phenomenon.
Yes.
I literally feel, sometimes like the swollen snake who,
So we have a couple questions. One from Jeanette. What are the health benefits of eating 1 to 2 apples a day? The old adage, an apple a day keeps the doctor away. Is there any truth to that? Or 2 apples, is it doubly good?
I don't think it has to be an apple. Any piece of fruit is going to provide you with vitamins, nutrients, plus fiber. So fiber is always important in our diet for a whole bunch of different reasons. But it makes a great snack. They're portable. You're making a better health choice, so that sometimes can lead to keeping you out of the doctor's office.
Great. And another question from Jocelyn. She says she works with younger children under the age of 3, and they offer a choice of apple juice and water. Would it be more healthful to cut out the apple juice?
That is kind of a tough question. It depends on the capacity in which you're working with those younger children. So if it's a program or a daycare where they have government subsidized food budget, there might be money within the budget for juices in place of whole fruit. But always offering water first is going to be your best option.
Is there any benefit of juice? Kind of in terms of a vitamin, mineral?
There's not much.
Not much, okay.
I mean, the main vitamins you would get from juice would be vitamin C, which, again, I haven't seen a lot of people walking around with scurvy lately, so that's not a big one I'm concerned about. Potassium is another one, especially with orange juice, but you can get that from eating a banana. You get more potassium eating a potato. The best, a glass of milk, because you're also getting magnesium, phosphorus, calcium, protein, all those good things.
Good.
And do you have any other tips for kind of, so not just fast food, but kind of dining out in general for portion control or limiting salt? Is there anything or calories?
Definitely. So I think dining out is another one of those things that as a society we have just accepted as part of normal, everyday, day-to-day, week-to-week life, where you ask people how often they go out or do takeout or something. It's either, several times a week. Some people do it daily. It used to be kind of like an event. Like you got a good report card and the whole family went out for dinner. It wasn't like just because it's Friday, Saturday, Sunday, you go out all the time. Most of the time when you go out to eat, you're also consuming well upwards of 1,000 calories, which can be a lot. For one meal. In that one sitting. And your body just doesn't really know what to do with that.
Yeah, because if you put together, we can talk about like alcohol, but like it's a choice. In terms of, or like so how many calories does kind of a light beer have?
A light beer usually runs like between 95 and 115 calories, and they kind of go up from there. So typically, especially in this area, we love our craft beers. Usually a kind of, not always true, but quick and dirty method, the higher the alcohol percentage, the higher the calories. So if you're getting that like monster 9% double, triple IPA, that one is going to be in the like 200 calorie range for the same ounce for ounce that like you could get something else way lower.
What about wine?
Wine, it depends on who's pouring.
Okay.
So like a 5-ounce standard pour that you'd get in a restaurant is about 120, 125 calories. If it's more of a sweeter dessert wine, it goes up from there.
And liquor's the same?
Liquor's kind of the same. Most liquors, like if you're somebody who's like a rum and coke person or a vodka soda person, the rule is usually about 60, 65 calories an ounce. But a typical pour is 1.5 ounces, so it's about 95 calories, and then depends on what you're mixing into it.
Because tonic water certainly has calories, and sodium you have to watch out for in some of the mixes.
True.
Too.
And then, like, I imagine, like, pina coladas, daiquiris, right?
Yeah, those are like
big
your
time.
tropical smoothie.
Yes, big time calories,
Definitely.
So, kind of being conscious of that.
Do you ever recommend kind of setting aside or asking for like a to-go box right at the outset of the meal.
Definitely, yeah. Start, with what your order. Generally, those portions are going to be way bigger than anybody needs. Cut your meal right in half, put half away so you're not even tempted to have it. Another thing is just with the start of the meal. So everybody sits down, think about what you're ordering for a drink: an unsweetened iced tea, a seltzer water with some fruit in it, depending on how skeeved out people get by the bar fruit. I tell them to make a water sangria. They always have seltzer water. You can put, a couple of the maraschino cherries, a lime, an orange, a lemon. So it looks like you have this big, cool, fancy drink, but it has almost no calories in it. So think about your beverage choice. If you're kind of being mindful of how much you're eating, you're going to get plenty of starch and other things in your meal. Don't let the breadbasket hit the table.
Yes.
Wave them off, because once it's there, it's game over.
Yes.
You're going to be having at least 2, 3, 4 pieces. We're not your average shows. We're dunking it and then we're eating pizza after.
Right.
Yeah. Good call.
That's kind of it. So just wave it off, because once it's there, it's
So sad, but it's true.
no turning back. No turning back. And appetizers are another thing. You could make a meal of just having the appetizers, but once you start down that road, that's going to add a ton of extra calories that you probably don't really need when you're going to be having a meal that's more elaborate and then is already prepared with more fats and salts and other things than you would do at home.
What about salad dressings? Do you
Salad
recommend off the salad, on the side?
I always go on the side. Oil and vinegar is usually one of your best bets.
Okay.
Most restaurants carry that. That's going to be one of the lowest in sodium. And you can control how much goes onto your salad. If you're somebody who, loves your blue cheese or ranch or whatever it is, order it on the side. And then I tell people the fork dip method, where you dip your fork into your salad dressing and then start spearing your salad. So every time you take a bite, the last thing you're going to taste is the salad dressing, but you're not going to get all of the calories of dumping all of that right on top.
I like that.
Oh, yeah, it's a good one.
Or I'll sometimes put a little oil and vinegar on it, and then or just oil and then a little bit of the good dressing.
I like that.
Jocelyn has a question. She has a bad habit of ordering fries and mashed potatoes for 2 sides. Which would be a better substitute to keep with the side of vegetables? So if you ordered vegetables, which of those 2 would be?
Mashed potatoes and French fries are kind of a wash.
Okay.
If there's a baked potato option where you can order the butter and extra toppings on the side, that's usually a good one. If you ordered a salad and you already have the oil and vinegar on the table, a little drizzle of oil and pepper goes great on a baked potato.
Okay.
Great.
To add a healthier fat alternative to the butter or sour cream.
Good.
Yeah.
Moving on to, just as they're talking about salad dressings and being out to eat, food safety. As we're coming into...
We just learned it's a big passion of yours, too.
Big passion.
Yeah, mine too. Food safety, kind of moving into summer barbecue, cookouts, potlucks.
Mayonnaise-based
Mayonnaise,
salads.
warm weather, right? How to stay out of harm's way.
It is such a sensitive topic for people. I know in my family, I was saying before we started, is that everybody knows I'm the food safety police, and I feel like they just dread when they see me coming by. I'm like, oh, that chicken looks a little pink. But there are definitely things you want to keep in mind, being cookout season, warmer weather, all of that. So one of the things is, if you're planning a party or a cookout, how much you're making, how many people you have, and how much you're putting out at a time. So maybe you made, 2 boxes of pasta worth of pasta salad. Well, you don't need to lay it all out at the beginning. Maybe take a small bowl, put it out, and it's better to let people eat up what's out and refill it than to leave things sitting out. Same thing with if you're grilling meats, things like that. Kind of get a head count, find out about how much you need so that you're not over making things that are going to be sitting out and baking in the sun.
So let's start with the kind of preparing the food. So beef, chicken, cutting boards and things like that. What do you tell people?
So if you're starting out, you want to look at your raw foods, things that are going to need to be cooked, and then your foods that are going to be just consumed the way they are. So if you're making salads, anything fresh that's not going to be heated back up or cooked, you want to kind of do those guys first before you put the meat out on the counter, before you do anything like that.
Smart.
Start preparing all of those other things so they're just not going to be in harm's way. The vegetables, you know, washing your produce before you use it, things like berries, washing it just before, because they're going to, and mushrooms, those things get kind of mushy if you do that too far in advance. But washing everything down, getting all of that ready to eat food prepared, picked up and put away before you sort of move on to your meats. Meats are one of the biggest culprits to foodborne illnesses. Improper, you know, cross-contamination, which would be like if you were cutting up your chicken on your cutting board and then you started cutting salad on it, which is kind of like the most stereotypical example, but not the one people think about. It does happen. Or it would be...
I'm like laughing as my wife would like chase me around with the bleach. And, you know what I mean? As I'd be cooking, I would barely get it lift up and she'd be like, ew. You know what I mean? It just sprayed, you know, she was fanatical about, you know, making sure there was no
chicken, especially the chicken.
There was no cross-contamination happening, you know, separate cutting boards and...
Well, if you're cutting up your chicken first, or whatever your meat is, you definitely want to make sure you clean first, so clean the whole area and then sanitize. So if you're using those bleach sprays, things like that, most of them have to sit on the surface for 60 to 90 seconds to get that real clean, that I'm losing my train of thought here.
Like that kind of the antibacterial.
Right, to get
sanitation.
Exactly.
And how do you recommend people clean cutting boards?
Wash them really
hot,
well.
hot
Soapy water. I always spray mine down with a bleach spray too, like if I was cutting up chicken or something like that. That's something too that you're going to want to wash separately or last. Like you don't want to be scrubbing down your dirty chicken boards and then putting, you know, the cups and plates and other things right into that water because you know you're not sure that you're going to rinse all of it away.
So then in terms of cooking, so for preparation, kind of doing the fresh stuff first that isn't going to be heated up, and then kind of the raw meats. Any, you know, in terms of ground beef, any pink, is it safe? What's the, you know, there's a big debate about that.
Yeah, your best friend is going to be a thermometer.
Okay.
You can invest in one, like it doesn't have to be the world's best thermometer. Any is better than none. A properly calibrated one is like the best. And then if you're somebody who's really into cooking or, you know, grilling, you can spend $50, $75 on a cool one that links up to your phone that'll tell you when your meat's exactly done, you know, sets alarms off, all of those kind of things. So as far as any kind of ground meat product, the general rule is cooking it to 155 degrees or higher the first time around. And the reason is a steak can be cooked lower, steaks, chops, things like that can about 145 degrees. For the surface is going to kill off any of those bacteria, the organisms of interest there. But if you take a steak and you put it through a meat grinder, right, if there was a little bit on the outside, now that it's all ground up, you've increased that surface area, it could be anywhere within that. So that's why we really want to make sure that those ones are well cooked. If it's a turkey burger or a chicken burger, 165 degrees.
As well. We have a question again from Jeanette. As a nutritionist, what are your thoughts on the non-GMO soy burgers, chicken strips, etc.?
Yeah, there's a ton of new ones on the market. I actually just tried one of the new vegan plant-based burgers, the Beyond Burger, which they're carrying all around this area now. It was very bizarre. It looked like meat, it felt like meat, it cooked like meat. It tasted surprisingly like meat. When I compare the nutrition-wise, it's the same as having like an 85% lean beef burger. The saturated fat is still high because they use a lot of coconut oil and other things. The sodium tends to be a little bit higher in a lot of those products, so that's just something to be careful of. A good alternative is always doing something like portobello mushrooms, grilling those up, throwing that on a burger that has that nice meaty flavor, but you're just getting the benefits of the fresh vegetables.
Sarah has a good comment. One of the things that she was told about healthy eating is the less hands that have touched the food during the prep, the better the choice. So, you know, fresher foods instead of prepared foods. I think that's a great rule.
Definitely.
Yeah. Like real butter instead of spreads, too.
And then in terms of, so we cook the meats to 165 degrees for poultry, and then meat is 100 and, say what that was again?
If it's like a steak, if it's something that's whole like that, 145 degrees, steak, pork, lamb. And then if it's a ground product, at least 155 degrees.
And then things that can go wrong outside of prepared, so mayonnaise-based foods, correct? You have to be careful.
Yep, any of those salads.
Or any egg-based.
Yep, any of those salad-based foods. It's really the time that it sits out. So there's what we call, in the biz, the temperature danger zone, and that's when those bacteria are going to be multiplying in the quickest amounts, and it's between about 41 and like 140 degrees. That's kind of like that, 135, I think. That's that zone where it's kind of at its most hazardous. So if you're having a potluck or a cookout and you have all of those salads and all of those things out, if it's been more than 2 hours, you're not salvaging them, unless you want to heat them back up to 165 degrees for at least 15 seconds. But I don't think you're going to be reheating grandma's potato salad. So the best thing to do at that point, if it's been longer than the 2 hours, ditch it. If it's over 90 degrees outside, it's 1 hour. It actually shortens that window.
Okay.
That's great.
Yeah.
And then what's the utility, if it's a little bit longer, if you have it as on ice or anything like that?
It can, yeah, it definitely can be, or if you're keeping it in a cooler. That's kind of another thing. If you're going somewhere and you're bringing food, if you're bringing raw meats and then prepared salads, things you're just going to serve, put them in 2 separate coolers. Making sure you sanitize down your coolers too after you use them. That's a big one. Going to and from the beach, bringing your sandwiches, whatever it is. If, you know, things get wet with the ice in there, they're leaking, you can wind up having kind of a nice environment for some unfriendly bacteria to be growing. Another thing I wanted to touch on was just grill safety.
Yeah, please.
Okay.
Yeah, that's kind of a big one. So working, back when I worked inpatient on the surgical floor, I mean, every summer we'd have at least one case of somebody coming in with some sort of an intestinal perforation from one of those little wire grill brushes.
Really? Yep.
Yeah, those things are not the best, but a lot of people use them. So there are other options and ways to clean your grill. They have kind of like a wooden paddle scrape that works pretty good. If you are going to use the wire brush, it's not a bad idea. Most all of those grill grates are removable. You can soap and water and just a regular brush clean them down too. Or just taking, you know, tin foil, scrunching it up and rubbing that on can be a good way to get that off without having the risk of those little bristles coming out.
Okay, great. That's really helpful. So, I think anything else on food safety, or you said you're the police. Is there anything else that you tell all your patients that
let me see here.
Utensils,
Utensils,
right?
yeah.
Utensils, yeah, that's a big one. So if you're, again, with the raw meats, gosh, they just, so gross. So if you are bringing your meat out on a platter, right, and then you're putting it on the grill, if you're using your hands, making sure you wash your hands like immediately after you do that, and wash the plate, or get a new plate, because you don't want to be putting your cooked product back on that dirty surface. Another thing is if you're putting those raw burgers or whatever it is on with tongs, and then you're taking them off with those same tongs, they're not getting heat treated the same way the meat on the grill is. So just having 2 sets of tongs or spatulas is usually a good idea too.
My cousin's a food scientist. I'm laughing thinking
Oh,
about
I love it.
Yeah, so he's obviously super big on food safety as well. And when we cook Thanksgiving, you know, we cook a lot together, and it's always just hysterical. You know, just kind of what you're doing. He's like, you know,
You put the stuffing in the turkey?
Yeah.
No!
Oh my gosh! Yeah, absolutely.
That's a complete meltdown.
Yeah. And just backtracking, but we kind of talked about fish in terms of like healthy, you know, kind of grades of, and then shellfish and regular fish in terms of, you know, calories, fat, and different contents. Can we go through? We didn't. It's off the food. I'm sorry. I just want to make sure are we done food safety?
I think we can be.
All right.
We can be done with that.
I was just thinking about grilling foods and different things.
I know,
in terms of choices
grill
of
fish. Fish is always a good one.
Yeah.
So it's recommended that you have at least 2 servings of fish a week, which would be, you know, at least a 3-ounce serving, because it does provide healthy omega-3 fatty acids. That's a great one. Calorie-wise, it tends to be very low in calories. So, you know, if you're depending on the size of your portion or how much you're having and how it's prepared, or if there's sauces and different things on it, that can make a difference. I feel like shellfish kind of gets a bad rap a lot of the time.
Yeah. True or not true?
I go not true on that.
Okay.
The reason is, so that's kind of that cholesterol debate.
Yes.
So shrimp is kind of like one of the big ones. Shrimp is very lean, it's low in fat, it's high in protein, it's a great food for anybody. But when people are watching their weight, that's kind of a nice one. But people are sort of afraid of it because of the cholesterol content. Mm-hmm. Shrimp and shellfish are higher in cholesterol because they make cholesterol, that's what makes their outer shell. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. But those foods also tend to be very low in saturated fats. So when we see foods that are going to raise your cholesterol, it tends to be foods that are high in both saturated fat and cholesterol. So where those shellfish are very low in saturated fat, low in total fat, they do have more cholesterol, but it doesn't play as big of a role in that.
In raising your cholesterol.
In raising your cholesterol.
Same thing with scallops?
Same thing with scallops. Yep, any of those guys. And they can be, a great source. Even oysters, things like that, of thiamine and other. Mm-hmm. Zinc, definitely a great zinc food.
A question from Sarah, is canned tuna an acceptable fish, since she doesn't usually like any shellfish or any other fish?
Definitely. Canned tuna is a great one. It depends on which you like. I would suggest getting the one that's packed in water. Mm-hmm. Being careful though, some of those do have added sodium into them, so just keeping an eye on that. Another thing is the chunk light, which a lot of people prefer the solid white albacore flavor-wise. The chunk light is actually lower in mercury, so it depends on how much tuna you're having.
And who has to worry about mercury? Everybody?
Everybody. Yeah. Pregnant women would definitely be like the higher risk group for that, so just staying with smaller fish too.
And those are the larger and more oily fish, like tuna.
Yep, the tuna.
Halibut.
Yep. Okay, great. So I think kind of transitioning a little bit into something that we touched on in terms of like kind of parsing down cholesterol, unsaturated fats. I think one of the things that we have a lot of trouble with is reading food labels.
Yes.
And is that a big part of your kind of counseling people on how to?
Definitely. Yeah. And it depends on kind of what you're reading the label for. So different people are looking for different things. Mm-hmm. So if somebody has high cholesterol, they might be reading the label a little bit differently than somebody who has diabetes, or, depending on whatever you're dealing with. But a good way to look at things is to kind of just start at the top. Our food label is actually changing in this month, June or July.
Oh, no kidding.
Yep, so there's new regulations on the Nutrition Facts panel.
Okay.
So that's kind of exciting. They've made certain things bigger and bolder and highlighted some different areas to make it a little bit more user-friendly. One of the really nice things is that they're moving toward portion sizes that are like real household measurements. So it's not going to say like 23 grams of a cracker, because that means nothing to anyone. Right. It would be like a quarter cup of these crackers or 16 pieces.
Right.
And then they made things reflective of what portion sizes are now, which is also really nice.
Which has changed.
So, right. So if you're having ice cream, for example, that's like one of the best ones. Oh, another love next to pizza. That is like my favorite. But nobody is eating a half a cup of ice cream. No one is having that one little baby scoop. So what they did is they changed it so it's more like a third of a pint, which would be more like a normal serving.
Which would be what you'd be eating in 5 minutes.
Right.
And then the rest like of it later. Yeah.
Another food that I know has already changed their label, and I've seen it in the grocery store, is the Kraft macaroni and cheese. So they've made a box 2 servings. Okay. Because we're not feeding a family of 4 off of that one box. Yeah. Nobody's doing that. Yeah, no. So start at the top. Calories are going to be big and bold. Mm-hmm. That is below kind of where it talks about how many servings are per container and what the serving size is. So I would always look at what the serving size is. If this is a box of crackers, if this is cereal, whatever, look at what the serving size is. Because if you're eating 4 times the serving size, you're going to have to be getting out your calculator and doing some multiplication. Right.
And back to that goal, or just kind of the rough rule of thumb, but per meal, 500 to 600 calories total. All in.
Yep. Total all in. So all your pieces, all your ducks adding up. If you're doing a snack, I usually say keep it under 200 calories.
Okay.
So look at the serving size, how many servings are in a container. So they need that, if you ate the whole darn thing column too. And some of them are putting that now. It's like if you eat the whole package, this is how many calories you're going to get. I love it. Knowledge is power.
Yeah.
The next piece I would look at, so I'd look at those total calories, think about, is this a meal, is this a snack? The next thing I look at is if you're just doing a quick and dirty label read so that you're not spending 75 hours in the grocery store, is I would look down to the saturated fat, because we're doing less of a focus on total fats and more of what that fat breakdown is.
Okay.
They're also, more often you're going to be seeing that breakdown, so it'll say saturated fat, monounsaturated fat, and your polyunsaturated fats. For the saturated fats, keeping that as close to zero as possible is just kind of a good rule of thumb for everybody for general health. So the closer to zero, the better. If you're somebody who likes to look at those percentage daily values off to the side, a good rule with that is on things that you want to keep low amounts of, 5% or less is a really good indicator. If you're looking for something to be high, 20% or more.
So like fiber, protein.
Yeah, fiber, protein, we want to see those. And then for the 5% or less, the saturated fat, the sodium,
And
the sugars.
Yeah. Okay.
There's not really an established daily value of sugar because we don't really need
any of it.
need it, so that's kind of like a finicky one. But so I'd look at the saturated fats, and then that next piece that I'd jump down to would be the sodium.
Okay.
Okay.
We way overconsume sodium as a society. We take things that have a ton of salt added into them and then throw some more on top. So if you're doing a meal, again, if you can keep it less than 600 milligrams of sodium for a general person, I'm not saying someone who has congestive heart failure or kidney disease or something else, but if you can keep it less than 600 milligrams, less than 650 milligrams for the meal, that's a really great choice. Same thing, kind of like the calories with for a snack. If you can keep it less than 200 milligrams, you're doing a really good job towards limiting your daily totals of sodium intake.
And recommended for, somebody like you said, without congestive heart failure or other, salt kind of more sensitive conditions. What's your general rule for salt total intake?
Yeah, 2,300 milligrams is about the cap. People need way, way, way less than that.
Okay.
So if you can do less, all the better.
And that's about I usually tell people about a teaspoon if they're trying to visualize it. Is that accurate, or am I telling
In a
you
whole
the wrong
day.
thing?
In a whole day. Yeah,
So
a
that's-
teaspoon has over
that's right.
2,000 milligrams of sodium. So if you think about, if you're salting everything you eat, food naturally has sodium in it already. It can add up quickly.
I was just thinking about surviving. We talked about going on deep, but like going to the movies in the summer as well. So popcorn, right, is a big offender in terms of calories, salt, fat. Right, what they cook it in, unfortunately. Yes.
Popcorn at home can be a really great, healthy, whole grain food that you can control all of that. At the movie theater, they tend to pop it in an oil solution that already has salt and butter flavoring and added fats into it. Not necessarily the healthier added fats. And then, we're adding the butter flavored topping. Butter's ugly cousin, which is delicious, but again, it can add up really quickly. Take something that was a healthy snack and make it a little less
jumbo
so.
size soda on top of it.
And then you got to grab a couple things of candy too. And now, some of our local movie theaters are even serving alcohol.
Right.
So it's
That's a tough
watch out
one.
for that as well. Yeah. Good. Any questions in the queue?
So one from Joanne just says lower daily calories amount per serving. So 600 if you're trying to just maintain, maybe a little bit less if you're trying to cut some calories and lose some weight. So, but just
that's a good kind of quick estimate for anybody.
Do you recommend any for people's phones, certain apps? Like for our patients, I like MyFitnessPal in terms of tracking calories and putting weight goals and age and helping. I think it's one of the best.
There are a ton of them. What I like about MyFitnessPal also is that all of the foods on there, so all of that information on any of those apps is crowdsourced, meaning that anyone can enter whatever they want for that nutrition information. So if you're looking up a food in MyFitnessPal, I know their app specifically, I believe it has like a little green check or some sort of a symbol that lets you know that that's one that's been validated.
Okay, so it's not just somebody's.
So random throwing in the calories there. But as a good estimate, that's a great way to kind of keep track, or just to kind of open your eyes to what you're actually taking in a day.
Yeah,
Great.
and you can track activity as well in those two.
Definitely. Water intake, that's a big one.
Okay.
Good. So.
Any other remaining
we're all
medical
caught
questions in
up.
the queue? Any
We're
other
all
pizza
caught up.
recommendations?
No, only that one, so I think that's your
Metro
winner
Pizza
right
might
there.
be the,
Yep,
might be
that's
the
your
winner. Heather, thank you very much for taking an hour out of your summer to come spend it with us again. We welcome, we look forward to having you back. We, again, as always, didn't get through all the questions that I had for you, but this was a great, great summer start, so thank you very much. And just kind of recapping our announcements earlier in terms of making smart, healthy food choices, also in preparing for summer cookout and barbecues. Southcoast will be hosting farmers markets in 3 different locations: Tuesday, June 19th at St. Luke's Hospital, Wednesday, June 20th at Charlton Memorial Hospital, and Thursday, June 21st at the Southcoast Business Center in Mill Road in Fairhaven. There will be local produce and things you can purchase for healthy cooking and eating this summer. Weight loss surgery at Charlton and St. Luke's hospitals. There'll be seminars. If you want to find out more information about that, the number to call is 508-273-4900. Again, 508-273-4900. The Kegel Connection Workshop for new mothers or expecting mothers in their first or second trimesters by our physical therapy department will be this Saturday, June 9th from 9 to 11 in Dartmouth. The phone number, if you're interested in that, is 508-973-9370. And finally, I hope to see some people out there 9 a.m. Saturday morning for the New Bedford Wellness Initiative Walk with the doctor. I'll be at the Buttonwood Park Zoo and hoping to see some people there. Hannah, thank you as always for a great show and helping to put together a great outline for tonight. Josh, our producer, thank you for a great show. And stay healthy, Southcoast.
By the time I graduated high school, I think I was between 275 and 300. I had to buy my dress clothes at the Big and Tall store. Enough is enough. Southcoast Health gave me the tools, and here I am, with my health. And I was a 46 going into a 48, and now I'm a 30-inch waist. I'm living proof to show if you put the work in on anything that you can get what you want. Take impossible, throw it out of your vocabulary.
I became a fisherman. I used to scuba dive for quahogs, and that was heavy work. When you're self-employed, you gotta keep going. I kept hurting my back. Then I found out I have degenerative disc disease. I deteriorated to the point that I couldn't stand up. The pain was just so severe. It affected me emotionally, psychologically, and physically. I had probably 12 surgeries, and I wanted to give up. The pain was just so bad. When there's no relief in sight, what else do you have? My general physician, I went to him, I told him I wanted to go to Boston, and he said to me, before you go to Boston, I know a guy at Southcoast Health. So we met with the neurosurgeon at Southcoast Health, and he told me what he was going to do. That's when I started to get happy. The pain had subsided. I wake up happy. I go to bed happy. I can stand up. I saw my surgeon 6 weeks ago. He says, Bruce, you're doing well. And I said to him, you saved my life. And without you, I don't know what I would have done or where I would be today. Yeah, there's a lot of tears, even on his part. I can't tell you how much of a difference it's made in my life. It's totally different. Now, bring it on. Life is good.
you.